Luka Doncic is looking svelte in a magazine profile. Are we buying LUKA 2.0? Our Locked On local hosts are putting together their NBA Top 100 for next season. Which players are Matt and Haize having the toughest time ranking? That's all today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories every day with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always. From the Locked On Nuggets podcast, he's a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt, have you ever in your life been as happy as Nikola Jokic was when his horse won a race this weekend?
No, there's nothing in life that brings such joy. You know, I would like to say something like my kids being born, getting married, something like that. I have to be honest. Nothing brings anyone as much happiness as Jokic's horses winning races.
I've never seen him as athletic as when he was leaping over the fence to go and hug his horse. He also had this great quote: "Just being around the horses, I think it's the best sport in the world," he said in a video on NBA.com.
Yeah, like, you have to understand. I will say this though, like, think of the way you break that down, because the headline is like he thinks it's better than basketball, but like really break that down. It's being around the horses. I cannot stress to you enough. There are people that love the ponies, right? Mm-hmm. This is not that. Mm-hmm. This is not like liking the races. Like, the man genuinely loves the animals, and that's a topic, I guess, for another time.
All right. From the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Haize. Haize, do you like the animals?
I love, like, you're talking about a guy who owns 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a snake. Yes, I love animals.
Wow.
What kind of snake?
A boa constrictor.
Wow.
I thought you were going to go with Black Mamba. All right, let's get to our first topic here. The talk around the Lakers this offseason has been more about what LeBron James would or wouldn't do than what the front office has actually accomplished. Locked On Lakers today welcomed the Athletics' Jovan Buha to talk about the Lakers offseason, and Buha isn't here for any excuses. He says they haven't done enough.
They've not made an offseason player-specific trade since August 2022. I think that is pretty ridiculous, to be completely frank. Like, I think the fact that it's about to be probably a third straight summer of not making a trade, when I think there's some excuses around why they haven't or why they haven't been able to do it that I don't fully agree with. Of just, I know trades are hard. I know the new CBA makes things more difficult, but I think that it is a bit of an excuse to just kind of say there's nothing out there. Like, if you put Rui, Dalton, and a first on the table, you will get something that I think is an upgrade. Now, we can debate whether that upgrade is worth that price and how much of an upgrade, even if it's a 5% upgrade, a 10% upgrade. I think if you are willing to put that on the table, you can get in the conversation for guys who are maybe a little bit better than I think some of the reported stuff that's out there.
Matt, have the Lakers been too careful over the past couple of seasons, too patient, too careful with their roster building tools when it comes to trading for upgrades?
No, they're just like most of the other GMs in the league, which is like they like their guys too much. Rui, Dalton, and a first can get you an upgrade on those players, but guess what? The Lakers are holding out for Rui, Dalton, and a first to get them a player like Devin Booker, to get them a player like Jaren Jackson, because that's the Lakers standard, is you throw your garbage out there and somebody else gives you their best player. That's the history of the Los Angeles Lakers. That's the secret to all their success, along with nice weather. So I'm not surprised that they're holding on to this kind of approach. Like, Austin Reaves should be gone. There is zero reason to have a roster with Austin Reaves and Luka Doncic. You're just inviting trouble by having 2 guys of that ilk who are defensive liabilities. I don't care how fit Luka is. We'll get to that in a second. There's zero reason for them not to trade Austin Reaves, but they don't think they have to because they think Austin Reaves is awesome and elite and all these types of things. The prestige zone is absolutely huge with every player that plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, Haize.
Yeah, I agree. Like the Lakers have this, and Lakers fans too carry that as well with themselves. Like it's just going to happen. Keep in mind, I'm the guy who all last season, at the beginning of the season, nobody's going to bail the Lakers out. They end up getting Luka Doncic. So they've proven me wrong several times before. But I just think overall, like where the Lakers are right now, they've been more active than I necessarily expected them to be coming into the season. I do think that. And I think that they have a goal of 2026 and 27 and being very active in those free agencies, especially after LeBron is off the books. And that's perfectly fine. But I got to give them credit. They were coming into this offseason. I expected less activity than what we actually got from the Lakers. So there you go on that one.
Like if they offered Rui, Dalton, and a first for Nick Claxton, the Nets are probably like seriously considering it. Like that's probably in serious consideration. And then if DeAndre Ayton doesn't work out, literally, then you actually have an opportunity for them to have the kind of center that I think they need to pair with Luka. So like I agree they should have done more, because it's like, what are your offseason additions? DeAndre Ayton off the scrap heap and Marcus Smart off the scrap heap. That's not building a championship team around Luka. But the problem is, again, the Lakers think that they can do better because they always believe that everyone should just give them their best players, because some people do.
All right, the Lakers may or may not need to add some help for Luka, but they won't have to worry about Luka adding pounds this offseason, not according to a profile that just dropped in Men's Health magazine titled Luka Doncic 2.0 has entered the chat. It details a revamped regimen for Doncic, who seems to acknowledge the past failings in this regard, but he says, quote, "Obviously, I'm very competitive. This summer was just a little bit different, It kind of motivated me to be even better." Haize, I don't know if you had an opportunity yet to read through this entire profile. Would love your thoughts here. Did Nico and your thoughts on the seemingly overwhelming takeaway from this article, looking at the pictures, reading the quotes, and that takeaway is, wait a minute, did Nico Harrison just create a monster here with Luka Doncic, a newly motivated Luka Doncic?
I think he did. I think we talked a little bit about that when the trade went down. Like the fact of how they use his conditioning and things as reasoning for that. If that wasn't going to be a motivating factor for Luka, I don't know what would. Is on top of him going to LA and getting to see how LeBron works out, and he's one of a physical specimen. Like I think all those things combined now put Luka in a spot where he's going to understand how important conditioning is, especially if you're going to be the best player on a championship team. So they may have woken up the beast for Luka, and if he's going to take his conditioning seriously going forward, watch out.
We talked about it on the show when the trade happened. Like, this is the observer effect, is that when you are observed and you're being observed and these things come under, it prompts change. Like, internal change is very difficult for some people, for most people. But now, like, this is national embarrassment everywhere. And in doing so, in propagating that and sending out that PR message for the reason you traded this guy, he's going to eliminate the reason you traded him, which is why you shouldn't have traded him. You just should have embarrassed him more. The one thing I'll say on this, though, that I think is kind of like an interesting question is Luka being in shape better? Like, is it an objective good? Yes, 100%. Like, no question. His game, Haize, is so dependent on strength, right? Like, he dribbles into you and he uses that jab step, and most of it's just like manipulating space. Part of it is like he's one of the strongest guys in the league because he's chunky. If he gets svelte like this, even if he gets a little bit of it, he's never going to have elite athleticism. Do we know for sure, Haize, that this is going to benefit the actual parts of his game? Because I do think that there's at least some trade-offs. He's still going to be elite. I'm just saying there could be some trade-offs with the way that he plays if he's this slim going into the season.
Well, you got to keep in mind, muscle weighs more than fat. So even if he does slim down some, but been able to add it into convert some of that to muscle, he can maintain a lot of his strengths while looking slimmer. And so I think, hopefully that's the case, because you're right. I mean, his strength does play a huge part into his game, how he's able to, be stronger than a lot of guards and things like that. But, if he's working out and on the right regimen, I think he'll maintain a lot of that strength and thus hopefully a lot of that advantage as well.
So that's one question there that Matt poses. Will it change his game? And I think another question that's natural to ask is, will he be able to maintain this? Is this a case of, scorned lover revamps body because to show off to X, and then if they do win anything in LA, then it starts to regress? Or is this, real change? I don't know if that's really, I'm not really asking that because I don't know if it's really possible to answer. but I think it's certainly a valid question.
I mean, I continue to go back to there are reports from scouts, and I've heard this too, that he is the only guy they've ever seen who plays himself out of shape. Usually playing in game night after night after night, you get more in shape. Like Paul Pierce used to do this. He would come in way out of shape and just be like, I'm going to play myself into it by January. But Luka, for whatever reason, everyone's talking to the Mavericks fans this morning on Twitter have made some good points, which is, look, he's looked good going into international play with Slovenia. The problem was always like that month. It was like the month in between is where he would suddenly go from pretty good shape to not in shape at all. They're saying like, well, he hasn't had real rest. And I get that. I get it. But also, if you're going to start having the kind of championship runs that the Lakers want to have, he's not going to have rest going forward. So maintaining it's going to be that much harder going forward, because as anybody knows who's tried to lose weight, it's not just getting it off. It's trying to keep it off. Yeah. Shout out me in my 2010s.
It's a very interesting profile. I'll put a link to it in the show notes if you want to check out the full thing. He does mention, going back home and that being a big struggle. And they also talk about how he's playing less and working out more, which is something he didn't really want to do, but he was encouraged to by this new team of folks that he has around him. Also, Haize, you mentioned Luka looking to LeBron for an example, but I thought what was interesting, and I don't know how the question was phrased to get the quote, but at the end of this profile, he doesn't mention the LeBron James training regimen. He mentions Michael Jordan and he mentions Kobe Bryant, but no mention of LeBron. Very interesting. All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, we've got a lot more to get to. Where is Luka going to land in this list of Locked On's top 100 players for next season? And Matt and Haize, they are busy filling out their list. I want to know which players they are having difficulty ranking among the top 100. And we'll talk about the Atlanta Hawks. Interesting debate on Locked On NBA Game Night about who this season is more important for, Trae Young or Jaylen Johnson when it comes to Atlanta getting better in the East. That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This shot brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into one quick, energizing boost. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your buds, this flavor is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's face it. Some days, whether you're on the course or off of it, you just need to get that extra kick to stay sharp and energized. That's where the transfusion flavor and transfusion shot steps in. It's all the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without having to flag down the beverage cart. Golf is about good times with good people, and now good flavor too. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and use our promo code LOCKEDONGOLF, you'll receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th, so go. And it's only valid on one order and can't be combined with other promotions. It's also not valid on subscription orders. Whether you're looking to rally for another 18 holes or just stay locked in with your crew, grab a transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shot and power through. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We're one of the most listened to podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network, and we're now on a mission to become the most watched show on the network. So if you've been listening for a long time, thank you. Please support the show by going to YouTube and subscribing there as well. All right, all of the local hosts on the Locked On roster of NBA podcasts are working hard to put together their votes for Locked On's NBA Top 100 list. So, Matt, outside of injured players like Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, outside of those exceptions, which players are you having the most difficulty pinning down a ranking for as you make your way through this list?
So I think the challenge is, for me, is between the best player on bad teams and really valuable players on elite teams. So here's a good question. I think Trey Murphy's amazing. And I think Trey Murphy's incredible. And he's one of the rising stars in this league. Is Trey Murphy more valuable than Norman Powell? Is he more impactful? Is he better than Norman Powell? Should you rank him higher than Norman Powell? Jamal Murray contributed to a 50-win team again. He's won a championship. He's certified 21-6 every single game. But his advanced metrics are nowhere near Tyler Hero, who has way more usage and way more opportunity in Miami. Is it Jamal Murray or Tyler Hero? That dividing line, I think, is really tough, along with the elite level role players trying to figure out their value, because you have to kind of evaluate things from, like, here's a good one for me, is I think Derek White is an elite player, because you look at the 3-point and the defense, like, that guy wins games. James Harden at this point in his career, not elite, not peak James Harden, but like James Harden at this point in his career versus Derek White. Okay, Harden's an engine. He is the system, quote unquote, right? He actually does handle the ball the most of the time and sets everything up and does all these things. Could Derek White do that as well as James Harden? No. So like I gave Harden the edge, but White's so effective, so efficient, and so impactful, and doesn't have the disappearing acts that Harden sometimes has. Like these are the type of questions that keep me up nights, Haize.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into the advanced numbers, like for me, one of the things is like I have to factor in defense to stuff, and like defensive numbers are so all over the place as far as like, because it's not as simple as just like going out and seeing steals all of a sudden make you a better on ball defender, right? So like that's something that I'm having a hard time factoring into how exactly I want to place some of these guys, because you know if you're a similar offensive player, let's even say you're a step or two below a player offensively, but you're head and shoulders above them defensively, like I need something to back that up when I look at that. And so that's really the thing that for me in my top 100 is factoring in that defensive ability, and then also having data that if I need to show that I can also explain that with other than just the eye test. So that's the thing that I'm factoring in the most, that I'm doing a lot of research on. Go ahead.
So, Haize, on that point with defense, I have trouble with this where you have elite guys that when they take on more usage tend to slip a little bit. Like Scotty Barnes to me is like a really fascinating question of trying to solve here, right? Because he's had a lot of injuries, but they've also been tanking. So he's been sitting out, like all these types of things. So like, how do you evaluate that? Plus, like, how do you remove the player from the system that they're in? Like Norman Powell's defensive numbers are excellent. You know why? Because he's on the Clippers. Like, this is no secret. Norman Powell's not a great defender. So everything with the numbers, you always got to take it as much context as possible. I think when you're evaluating these players, you got to factor in. My approach is to factor in as much as possible. I want all of the variables to try and consider. But on the defensive side, I think Haize makes a great point. It's really difficult to kind of pin down what the exact value of these guys is. Like Haize, I got a good one for you. Who's better, Tyrese Maxey or Bam Adebayo?
See, yeah, my first thought would be to go with Bam because of the defense. Yeah, because the two-way ability and how much he switches and guards multiple positions.
Tough.
What about the trust factor in terms of health and availability on the floor? So important. How do you balance trust versus talent for a guy like Zion Williamson or Kawhi Leonard? Kristaps Porzingis, who's going to be probably fringe towards the bottom as with all of the issues that he has. But how do you balance those two things in your mind when you're thinking like Zion Williamson talent-wise? Like if he were fully healthy, probably top 20, top 25 guy, but like can you trust him to be available for you?
Yeah, I mean, the availability is sometimes the best ability. So, like, if you're not available, then I still rank you, of course, based off what you are when you're on the court. But that's going to automatically stop you from being maybe in like my top 20, top 25 because you're just not available enough. So, availability is a huge factor in it to me as far as my voting.
It's there for me too. I've got Embiid 29th right now. Wow. And that's not fair to him. Like, you go up this list and you're like, wait, you think Ivica Zubac is better than Joel Embiid? No. You think Domantas Sabonis or De'Aaron Fox? No. But those guys are going to play. I know that they're going to play, and it's not Joel's fault. But if you're I think a lot of it is if you're so impactful in the game, but the season share is 82 games. Your job is to make the most impact over 82 games. And if you were super impactful, but you're only impactful for 40 or less, that has to factor in. And it's brutal. If we do these rankings based off of nobody's injured, no considerations of any of those types of things, it comes out entirely differently.
Did that affect your ranking of Victor Wembanyama at all?
No, because like they've been very cautious with him, and he had a blood clot. Like he didn't have a knee injury. He doesn't have a foot injury. He doesn't have a back injury. If those things pop up, then we have to start having a different conversation because those are the things that sideline big men. But as of right now, no, I have Victor Wembanyama entirely insanely too high for a player that is his age.
Haize?
Wemby is a difficult one to gauge because again you have the age thing. He hasn't really scratched the surface, and the injury things are all factored into those when it comes to Wemby. But I go ahead and bury the lead. Wemby's definitely he's gonna be outside my top 25, but he's gonna be my top 30.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I can't wait for that conversation. Yeah, don't give away too much. We have to reveal the actual top 100, and then we'll talk more about your ballots. Yes, Matt.
But I do have one kind of related to this. Here's a good comparison here, Haize. Kawhi Leonard or Pascal Siakam? Right?
It's going to have to be Pascal. Again, availability is going to have to be Pascal.
Dude made the finals, was the best player on the court a lot during the season and during the run. But if you're like, who's the better basketball player? If we take out everything else and it's just who's the better basketball player, it's Kawhi. Come on. Yeah. But these are the kind of things you have to think about when you do these rankings.
Yeah, well, because this is an NBA top 100 for next season. That's how, and maybe different people in the Locked On Network are going to interpret it differently, but that's how I interpret it. It's like I'm projecting out what the ranking is based on the past seasons, but really we're projecting out a little bit into next season. And role has something to do with that. Health has something to do with that, along with just the raw talent of the player. So there will be plenty to talk about this. This was a little bit of a preview. It's going to be coming out here in a few weeks. So we will definitely be continuing to debate it all summer long. Coming up on Locked On NBA, there was an interesting debate on Locked On NBA Game Night about the Atlanta Hawks and who is more important for the Hawks season coming up. Is it Jaylen Johnson or is it Trey Young? Matt always has some interesting thoughts on Trey Young, so I can't wait to hear that. Plus, the Haize always has interesting thoughts on the Chicago Bulls, and they made a little news by extending their head coach. We'll talk about Billy Donovan's extension as well coming up on Locked On NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. On last night's Locked On NBA Game Night, they talked about the players that could potentially leap into the front half of that top 100 list we just talked about. Hawks forward Jaylen Johnson's name came up, and listen to this exchange on Johnson's importance to the Hawks living up to their rising expectations in the Eastern Conference.
If I am going to put the Hawks on the same tier in the postseason as the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers, I do think that we might need to be talking about Jaylen Johnson as Atlanta's best player next year. And I don't think that is that far-fetched.
Well, I think that's very far-fetched. I think if anything, Danny, this is going to be a reclamation year for Trey Young's resume. The Jaylen Johnson piece for me, his elevation is going to be contingent on him playing with Trey Young. I think a lot of Atlanta fans would be very encouraged to know that Jaylen Johnson and Trey Young, they actually performed well last year. They had a plus 3.9 net rating according to Data Baller. They had a 118.2 offensive rating. They had a 114.3 defensive rating. I think a lot of people have kind of overstepped on what Trey Young is and just how good he is. And I think a lot of that has to do with the situation around him.
Matt, Atlanta has been a popular pick to make an Orlando-like bounce in the standings. If they do so, will it be more about Trey Young or Jaylen Johnson? Settle the debate on Locked On NBA Game Night.
Yeah, I have to go with Swipa here, even though I think he's playing a part as always. I think, look, Trey was 96th percentile in offensive EPM last year. The numbers were absolutely ridiculous once again. He had a 45% assist rate. Think about that, right? And a lot of this is because with the way that Trey plays, the ball's always in his hands and he's always creating. And I think that there's drawbacks to that. I think much like Luka Doncic and a lot of these other guys, you have to find ways to get the ball out of his hands and have other people create and get him involved in those situations so he's not just standing off to the side. But I loved Jaylen Johnson last year. I thought he was ferocious. I thought he was so dynamic and did so many things. He also shot 31% from three-point range on 3.9 attempts per game. He also was only 57% from 2-point. That's not good enough. The number, like, there's just no way when you take a step back. The eye test, I think, gets you excited about Jaylen Johnson could be their best player. Trey every year is so consistent, and he does deserve a lot more credit than that. I think the challenge is more on Quinn Snyder for finding ways to mold this team into what they need to be, and Trey for evolving past the ball dominant James Harden, Luka Doncic type guy, and into more of a versatile weapon, which will give him more energy to hold up on the defensive end.
It's an interesting conversation because it's how you view the defensive limitations of Trae Young and how you view the defensive upside of Jaylen Johnson. I think is a big part here. The scoring isn't that too far apart, but I do think Jaylen Johnson isn't nearly the self creator that Trae Young is, and that goes to Swiper's point that you need those two guys together. I think that's a really good thing to have. But Jaylen Johnson, could I see him becoming the Atlanta Hawks' best player? Yeah, I could. When you shoot the ball over 50% from the field for your career, and you just know what you do, you're a solid defender, you rebound really well on top of that, and he still averaged 5 assists per game last year as well. I could see a world in which that happens, but I'd have to see it first before I just go into the season and think that everything, especially offensively, still doesn't revolve around Trae Young on that team and what he does as far as his assist numbers getting better every year over the last 3 years. We know what he can be as a shooter. I'll say this, as of right now, defenses have to plan more for Trae. And if you disrupt him, you disrupt more of the Atlanta Hawks offense than what you do if you were to kind of nullify Jaylen Johnson. And that's not a knock on Jaylen Johnson. I just think that as of right now, Trae Young's still their best player. And if Jaylen wants to be that, he's going to have to show it.
So Trae Young's usage relative to the rest of the league has been slipping a little bit over the past couple of seasons. It's gone from like the 98th percentile down to the 90th, and that's not a huge jump down, but it is something. DeJounte Murray had a little bit to do with that. Jaylen Johnson last season had a little bit to do with that. Matt, what do you think it needs to be to convince you that, like, okay, the ball is moving, more people have responsibility? How much will Kristaps Porzingis affect that for Atlanta next season? And how important is that to them winning more in the East next season?
I think it's difficult based off of trying to figure out where these teams are kind of going. And the East, I still think is so up in the air right now. I just think the East is like, we don't really know. We're kind of guessing because without Halliburton, without Tatum, now without Dame on the Bucks, we don't know what we don't know what the structure is. We know the Cavs are at the top and the Knicks are at the top. Everything after that, to me, feels very much up in the air.
Haize, final word.
Yeah, I agree there. Everything is up in the air as far as in the East, but the Atlanta Hawks are right there. And I'm almost ready to pick them as my sleepers in the East, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, you're almost ready. What's it going to take? What's it going to take?
I'm still trying to figure out how I feel. Do you know, crazy enough, because I've been putting an episode together on this. Do you know that the Orlando Magic shot 0% on contested threes last year as a team? 0 on highly contested threes. So how much Desmond Bane is as a three-point shooter is going to matter so much to that offense. So I'm trying to figure out how I feel about that.
That is it. That's an insane number. I have to get the crack research team on there. That's
on tightly contested threes at 0 to 3 feet. As far as the defender was 0 to 3 feet on a contested 3-point shot, they shot 0% as a team last year. That's bananas.
That is pretty insane. All right, so we do have a little bit of news to get to as we approach the nuclear winter that is NBA August. The Chicago Bulls announced that they have extended the contract of head coach Billy Donovan. They did not release the length of the contract or the amount. Donovan is 10 games under 500 and over 200 games as Bulls head coach, 205 to be exact, including 2 straight 39-win finishes. We have the local expert on the Bulls here with us. Haize, break down this news. What do you think?
So this is more a testament to how much the Bulls value having one sound, one band, one sound. That's what I was going for. Because Billy Donovan, he's really close to the Reinsdorfs, the ownership. Him and the president of basketball operations, Arturas Karnisovas, they have a great working relationship. And I think that's what this deal is indicative of. When Arturas got his extension, we knew that Billy Donovan was going to get an extension. They go hand in hand. And I think with the Bulls changing their direction and going younger, building more organically through the draft, the things that they said they wanted to do 4 years ago, then they traded for Nikola Vucevic and shifted that. They've now kind of realigned to that. And so I think that this extension is basically given runway to say, all right, let's see what you do now with the new direction that we have on this team. But where a lot of Bulls fans get upset at this is that we have seen no less than, I think, 8 coaches with winning records fired over the time that Billy Donovan has been the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. And we've seen our record get worse every year that Billy Donovan has been the coach, except last year where it finally stayed the same. So it's this thing that it's like, okay, the loyalty that you have to Billy Donovan, it has not been earned. And you're going to have to start seeing the results soon if you're going to want the fan base not to riot over it. But it just seems a confusing message for a team that talks about so much they want to get better and they want to hold themselves to a standard. Yet you have this culture that you are so tied with that hasn't won really anything but one playoff game in 6 years.
Yeah, Matt, that's the interesting question here, right? Because Haize says it's one band, one sound, but what if the sound is womp womp?
Yeah. Okay, I have a different view on this. So Billy came in 2015 with that Thunder team, and he's been the coach of basically 3-4 different iterations of a playoff team. It was the 16 Thunder with KD, and then KD leaves. The Russ team, the team with CP3, and then the Bulls team that had like one singular run where everybody was healthy, right? I think a key thing to look at here, and like fans don't want this. Fans want be better, win more games. I want to win. They didn't have the roster to win. They did not have the roster to win. My question is, Haize, have they quit on him at any point in season during his tenure? No. Like, this is the thing. If you're like, well, is that all we're rewarding? Yes. If you bring in Nick Nurse tomorrow to this Bulls team, they'll be better next year probably than they are with Billy Donovan. You know what happens? 2 years down the line, they're going to quit on Nick Nurse, and that's going to be it. Billy Donovan, being a coach in the NBA is being a CEO. It is managing agents, front office, players, player families, your coaching staff, the schedule, rotations, practice, everything. And Billy Donovan is elite as a CEO. And for me, this gets into a very simple thing. Everyone clowns this roster, and yet every year they've outperformed expectations defensively. That's the area where you see the most impact in terms of coaching is on the defensive side. If you actually gave Billy Donovan good defenders, you would actually have probably a pretty great team. They haven't had the roster. This is on ownership for not being aggressive enough and overhauling their roster and being bold enough to go in the direction that they need to.
Now, Haize, you said that your co-host on Locked On Bulls, Pat the Designer, was not as okay with this decision. What can you recap essentially his argument?
Yeah, I mean, basically, Pat's whole argument is that to some of the fans' points that we're rewarding mediocrity, and that's the kind of standpoint that a lot of Bulls fans take, and they feel on this. And it does feel like that somewhat. But Matt makes some great points. Like, I think Billy Donovan and Wes Unseld and what they have cooked up defensively the last couple of years have shown some things there to where it's some promise. Most of our own ball defenders were hurt last year. In Io, he was hurt last year. Lonzo was in and out of the rotation. Patrick Williams took a huge step down after starting off the season with a foot injury. So you had those injuries. Those are your best switchable defenders. So it's that. But, to reiterate Pat's point, it's just that, this team just seems to want to say that they want to get better, but then so much stays the same. And I can understand that frustration.
All right, if you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Got some exciting stuff for you this week, including Eastern and Western Conference tiers. And we're going to be talking about the best signature moves in NBA history. Really excited to dig into that. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Until next time, be kind to each other. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.